We're back, people. What is up? Another nice little stream going on today. Miami Dolphins discussion, go over some practice squad stuff because I never got a chance to talk about the full practice squad, give my thoughts. And then I wanted to go over some of my expectations with guys on the 53. Wanted to go more individual because I think, I've seen a lot of people doing expectations videos, but like as a whole, like as a team, wanted to go over more like maybe individual stuff and things that I expect from them because that is something I want to do. So we'll get into that in a second. Probably start with the practice squad stuff, and then we can just go over other things that we want to talk about. Ask me anything Dolphins related. Yeah, and we are a... What's up, troll? Wait, actually, let me see. I set up this ninja thing, and let me see if it works. Oh, sick. Okay, cool. I can put the comments back up on screen, so if I answer comments, I'll try to put it back up so people can see it if they rewatch the VOD, because I know that's been an issue. But yeah, let's start with the practice squad, because there are some interesting things here, and I think there's some players that, one, I want to go over why I think they made it. Two, guys that I think can get elevated and potentially make an impact this season, because practice squad, those guys actually do get involved, get brought up, and go over some of this stuff. So, in guys who are more like future players. So, guess I'm just gonna go in alphabetical order because that's how it's listed here on the Dolphins site. BJ Adams. I actually like that they kept BJ Adams around. I don't think he had the strongest preseason, but I do think he got better as the games went on. And I do think there's some talent there to work with. So he's a guy that I don't mind keeping on the practice squad as like a developmental option. Maybe, that happens in the future years, but he's not someone that I see making like an impact at all this year, but he's more of like a guy you can put on the practice squad to maybe, see how he develops next year and, give him that shot. Then you got guys like Cornell Armstrong. I think personally, I don't think Isaiah Johnson's currently on the practice squad. Wouldn't be surprised if one of those two gets bumped off for Isaiah Johnson because he made the initial roster. But I think Armstrong's on the practice squad for like special teams reasons. He's someone I would probably, remove for someone else. But I mean, it is the practice squad, so you're not going to get every single piece you want. Quentin Bell's on there. I think that's a good piece to have, is if someone who can get elevated and play. I think like if you did have an edge injury somewhere, Bell would get elevated pretty quickly and get up there, play some special teams, and would be able to actually rotate in. We saw last year he'd at least be a rotational player. So that's a pretty good practice squad addition. And then anyone didn't make the practice squad that surprised you? What happened with Grayson Murphy? So that kind of goes hand in hand. It doesn't, obviously I was a big fan of Grayson Murphy. It doesn't really surprise me that they moved on from Grayson. It just felt like he was someone that they didn't like as a scheme fit and they thought of as a one-dimensional player, because out of their edges, and I think the guys that they want to play, especially depth guys, they want guys that can do a little dropping into coverage, set the edge as a run defender, play special teams, and those are all Murphy's weaknesses. And my guess is, even though he was a good pass rusher, a really good pass rusher in preseason, I wonder if they don't think his pass rush translates as well to regular season play, because he doesn't have that elite explosiveness or power, which is really where guys have a lot of success pass rushing, is with explosiveness and power at the, in regular season play. So that's my guess why. Personally, I would have still kept him around, but that's just my guess of what people value in players at certain positions. And I think it's still surprising that he at least didn't get practice squad a little bit, but yeah, just something that they went towards. Jordan Colbert made it, so he made the initial roster. I watched Colbert's preseason after I saw he made the initial roster. Jordan Colbert is strictly a special teams guy. Wouldn't surprise me if he gets elevated throughout the year if there's some, injuries to some DBs that play special teams. If he gets elevated a couple times. I don't see him ever really playing defensive snaps. I don't think he's in a position for that. But actually pretty good special teams film in the preseason, and that stuff I actually think does translate to the next level. Braden Daniels, he's a guy that I really like keeping because he's only 25. He showed a lot of athleticism. I think he was your best preseason performer out of the O-line, out of the non-starters. He was the best performer. I really like getting him on the practice squad because he's maybe not a guy you would rely on to go in right away, but if there was injuries, to anyone on the O-line interior that's like, either a starter or a backup, I would be totally comfortable not only just elevating him to playing time, but like elevating him to the starting roster. He's one that I could see like actually going to the active roster at some point with some injuries. So I really like keeping Braden Daniels around. One of my probably favorite practice squad additions. Then we got Greg Dulcich. I made a video on Greg Dulcich, the tight end. He's someone that I think is pretty talented. Like, I think he's a guy that's talented enough to be on a starting roster. And when you look at the Dolphins tight end room, it would not shock me at all if he gets just elevated at some point. He's one that like I don't even think needs an injury to potentially get elevated. And it's not like Dulcich is like, some great player or anything. There's, obvious risks. There's reason these guys get waived. I think, he's had some injury problems that's really hurt him at the start of his career. But yeah, he's someone that I could see get elevated because of the state of that tight end room and be more of like an F move tight end. But yeah, Greg Dortch, sorry, typo. Yeah, Greg Dortch is the Arizona receiver. But, close enough. He's someone that I could see getting elevated. If he got elevated, I wouldn't expect a ton from him, but he's someone that I could see getting some, catches here and there in a game. I like the addition. If you can get any sort of production out of a practice squad player, that that's good work. Let's go to the running backs, actually. We can do both. So I've seen people have problems adding Jeff Wilson and JaMycal Hasty to the practice squad instead of going for any different running backs. And yes, while I agree, like I probably would have preferred to add at least one young guy, I can at least understand the logic here because one, they're not wasting an active roster spot on these guys, which I think is good. But really what the Dolphins need in the running back room right now, because their three starters are young, talented players. Their top three guys are young, talented players. And Jalen Wright has an injury, and it seems like his injury is going to cost him September-ish. He said he expects him back September-ish, so I'm imagining he misses probably around 3 games. So that means you need someone on the practice squad in a limited amount of time that you can elevate and will know the offense right away. So you need instant production. So sometimes on the practice squad guys, you need guys that you can instantly rely on. But a lot of the times you do need guys that you're more trying to develop. Like adding a Damian Martinez would have been great, but he's probably not someone they would have trusted to elevate in the first 3 weeks. So I think that's why they brought on Jeff Wilson, who obviously has been around. JaMycal Hasty has spent time with them. He was, I think, started with the Niners. So he has familiarity with the scheme too. So if they do need to elevate someone that can come in and play a couple of snaps, I know Hasty's played some special teams, so if they need that from a running back, they can elevate them at least early season. Now, these are not guys that I probably expect to be on the practice squad all year long because I think they might use all their roster elevations off rip, like Wilson. I wouldn't be surprised if Wilson gets roster elevated like first 3 games of the season, and then they go in another direction at running back after that. But I think it's probably the smart move, at least for early season stuff. Wilson, yeah. Folks only wanted Martinez because he went to UM. He was a 7th round pick for a reason. He was waived for a reason. Yeah. But, I mean, teams do make mistakes, and I do think it would have been a fine move that they added Martinez to a practice squad, at least over, like, Hasty. Because I understand why they went in both, but I do think there's a world where they could have gone, like, okay, we can rely on Wilson for one, and then Martinez can be more of a developmental guy. Castile is very talented. Like, Ollie was a 6th round pick. Sometimes guys fall farther than they should. And I think Martinez fell to the 7th round less for talent reasons and more for some other things. I understand why Jeff is back. He knows this isn't, but is it aggressive? I mean, it's not the most aggressive move. I would say it's a move that goes against with what they've been doing a lot this offseason, going for younger talent. But sometimes you do have to add vets that know the system. I know that's why they added Kendall Lamb, even though I'm not a big fan of the Kendall Lamb addition, at least not to the main roster. I think I would have been more okay with it if it was a practice squad thing, but I like the overall moves they've made where they've gone after younger guys who are hungry. But yeah. Other guys they kept around, AJ Henning. I don't mind keeping him. I think he looked pretty solid as a returner in the preseason. I know he had that fumble, but outside of that fumble, he had pretty solid returns. Don't mind keeping him on the practice squad as, like, let's say, say Eskridge or Malik ever missed time. He's someone you could elevate. Like last year, Eskridge was on the practice squad and got elevated when some of the returners got, face injury problems like, Barrios. So I think Henning, if, the returners ever, he's someone that I could see getting elevated if the returners ever, either get injured themselves or players above them at receiver were to get injured, and they would, you didn't want them at, if they're playing receiver full time, you maybe didn't want them at returner. I could see Henning getting elevated to at least play returner snaps. I don't know if he'll ever play actual offensive snaps, but yeah. They kept Alex Huntley. He's an undrafted rookie. He's someone that I don't think they necessarily needed to keep, but I guess I think he's the only D tackle on the practice squad. So I guess, maybe they're just trying to develop him there. They kept McClendon. That does not surprise me at all that they probably preferred McClendon over Grayson Murphy, because I'm guessing they thought of McClendon as more well-rounded. So even though Grayson was a better pure pass rusher, I'm guessing they see McClendon as more of a well-rounded guy and probably more of a scheme fit as a pass rusher too, because the way Grayson wins is, I don't think necessarily how they want all their pass rushers to win. McClendon will win more with like stunts and stuff, and he'll run down the middle of people, win with some speed to power, which I think, Weaver definitely values in guys with the additions he's made since they've been here with Chop and, adding Judon. I think McClendon just fits more of their style type. He's young too, so like, I definitely like keeping McClendon. McClendon and Quentin Bell aren't bad edges to keep. Those are guys that, I think could end up being, those are guys that I think could be rosterable players. Then you got Riley Patterson, the kicker. He's someone that I like seeing. It's not necessarily the player. I like the strategy though of keeping the kicker on the practice squad and just elevating the kicker until Sanders returns, because then you get an extra roster spot. Then you got Josh Preby. I like keeping Preby on the practice squad. He was, I think, the most intriguing. I would have been down for either him or Addison West on the practice squad as the undrafted rookie lineman. But I thought Preby had some pretty good moments, so I don't mind it at all. Hayden Rucci I like. I think Rucci last year never got elevated. He's someone that I think has a chance to get elevated this year, because I think he looked better in this preseason as a blocker. And the reason I think he has a chance to get elevated, even as much as Dolchich, is he is ahead in the playbook because he's been in the system now for 2 years. And two, if you look at the tight ends on the roster, you only have one wide tight end right now, and that's Julian Hill. So if they need to elevate a second wide tight end, if there's a time where they're like, okay, we need to, not like McClendon. Yeah, McClendon definitely had a strong preseason too. He definitely deserved it. He might have even deserved to make it. But Rucci is someone that I think could get elevated if they see a game plan of like, hey, we need 2 wide tight ends in this game. We need 2 blockers, because your other 2 are Waller and Tanner Connor, and Dolchich is more of an F tight end. So I could see Rucci getting elevated this year. He has a clearer path for sure. And then the final 2 are John Saunders Jr. and Theo Weiss Jr. They are guys that I think are future players, like probably some of your better developmental guys here. I think Saunders is someone that could develop into a rosterable safety, a depth safety. He showed talent in the preseason. I like his ability, his versatility, ball skills. I think he plays some pretty good instincts. And Theo Weiss clearly showed up. You got to see his skill set in that second preseason game. He's a bigger body receiver. Doesn't necessarily play like a bigger body receiver. Not like he plays soft or anything, but he doesn't play like he's a huge receiver. But he's a very detailed player. Like, has a very good understanding of the game, timing. In his routes and, setting up guys. I like his game as well. So overall, practice squad, probably some other additions I might have made instead of some of these guys, but overall, not a bad group. I think some of those guys could see elevation and see some playing time. Maybe Weiss takes NWI spot next year. He could take that roster spot next year, but NWI and I think Weiss are very different players. So, like, even if Weiss makes the squad next year, I think if you want someone to play in that more physical, like, big receiver role, you would probably want, a different type of guy. Can you do a video comparing this year's roster versus last year? Yeah, I could. Maybe I'll do that on stream, because I'm going to be streaming. I have videos planned throughout that next week, and then I'm going to stream before the game, like a couple of times. I'm going to stream on Saturday for sure, doing like a preview of the game. I also might stream on Sunday, I'm not going to be live during the game, but I might do like a pre-game stream, because I feel like everyone's live during the game, doing like live watch parties. But I might do Weiss is small. I don't think he's small. He's listed at 6'2", 210. but I wouldn't say he's like he's not. He doesn't play as big. Here's why I think Ollie is going to be more of a factor than we are giving him credit. Miami will now be able to run it power back against teams' nickel defenses. Ollie can feast there. I mean, I think Ollie's gonna. I mean, I think a lot of people are giving him credit, to be honest. And I think Ollie will be about as productive early on as you can expect out of a 6th-round pick. He's going to get a lot of touches, and with the Jalen Wright injury, he's going to get more touches than I think anyone was expecting right away. And I think he'll at least make an impact as a short yardage thing, grinding out some tough yards in those situations. Yes, if the Dolphins do face a lot of too high shell, hopefully he can help get the teams out of those looks, because the Dolphins have struggled in the past against those spots. But yeah, it would be nice. Got tickets, nice. Yeah, I think NWI is honestly, with how I've seen from some of the comments I get, I think NWI might be one of the most underrated players for the Dolphins going into this season. Because even if he's not super productive number-wise in terms of catches and yards, he's still going to be making an impact that maybe isn't on the stat sheet that, you're not going to be getting from other receivers as much. That's why I have a lot of faith in NWI. Like, you got him at such a cheap contract, too, for a guy that had a really strong year last year. I think running behind that left side of the line will be successful with Pat, Jonah, and Brew. Yeah. I think with the starters in, to be honest, I actually think the right side might be, if Austin Jackson's healthy, I actually think Jackson and Daniels might be more consistent running the ball. But I do think Paul and Jonah will probably have more flashy plays on their side. Because Paul and Jonah are obviously so, athletic and have that power that when they put it together at the same time, they have those really big lanes opened up. Well, I think Jackson and Daniels might be more consistent on the right side, creating lanes. Maybe not as flashy, but yeah. And it also kind of depends if, health on that side of the line too. But we'll see. Ryder, which home game would you go to if you could? I don't know. I'd have to look at I was thinking of going to the Falcons game in Atlanta. What game would I go to? Let me look at the schedule. Probably go to a fun one. We got this. No. Chargers Dolphins could be fun. No. Bengals Dolphins could be fun. Trying to see some potential good matchups there. It's crazy. He's not better fans because he had more stats than Tyree. Yeah. I mean, yeah, he had more touchdowns for sure. Yeah. There we go. Boom. I can pop up the chats now. Thank God. Oh, and see how it shows membership? That's pretty cool. I didn't even know it did that because it's different. Oh, yeah. Wow. Cool stuff. I didn't even set that up. Okay. But yeah, we can go to the roster, and you guys, continue to ask any questions you want. We can also even talk some college football. There was some stuff yesterday. Here, I'll even show a play. This is all 22 from week 1. I've already, there's some all 22 clips out there. That's Jordan Tyson, who's probably, I would say, leading as the wide receiver 1 going into the next year's class. But yeah, some interesting games. Mostly good defense yesterday. I would say most of the quarterbacks struggled, but it is week 1, so we'll see how they're able to bounce back. You don't want to overreact to anything. Take a poll. How many games do you think Tua will miss this year? No, I don't want to do that. I don't like to speculate and try to guess injuries on players. What up, bro? But yeah, let's go to the roster. 53-man expectations. You know what? Since we were just talking about Nick Westbrook-Akine, let's talk about some of the receivers. I think looking at it, I have huge expectations for a lot of these people. Obviously, Waddle. I think Waddle is going to have one of his best years in a while. I think, that does also kind of depend on, the health of your QB and your O-line, the success, I think, of the passing game. But I think Waddle, wouldn't be surprised if Waddle's like your receiver 1 this year. I still think Tyreek's going to be very good out there. Like, I think some people think his play fell off a cliff. I don't think it was necessarily his talent that fell off. I think there was some other issues going on wrong there. Some things around him, some things from him maybe mentally. But as a pure talent and player, like, he's still one of the most talented receivers in the league. So if Tyreek's bought in, which seems like Tyreek is bought in, as long as him and Tua can get on the same page pretty early, I would expect pretty big numbers from Tyreek if the O-line is taking a step up. Love Malik. I thought Malik had the chance to be one of the bigger breakout players for Miami. And while I don't know if he'll put up like crazy stats, like yards wise, because there's only so many yards to go around, I wouldn't be surprised if Malik gets more targets than even I was expecting, just with how the preseason went. To a real, like, this offense is so timing based, and targets really comes down to like how much Tua trusts you. And I know like Malik might not be on the field a ton because unless they're running 3 receiver sets, when he's on the field, like, I wouldn't be surprised to see Tua get him a pretty nice target share and him take advantage of it. I'm a big Malik Washington fan. I think he's going to do better than I even initially expected, like from a statistical perspective. Then you got Nick Westbrook-Akine. I think probably not as many targets or yards as you would want, but I think he's going to do the dirty work. I think he's going to make some clutch catches on third down and some clutch catches in the red zone that will make him worth his contract. So I think he's going to be more valuable than people give him credit. And then I think as a 5th and 6th receiver, Eskridge and Taj can actually make plays. I think in the past, the Dolphins have had 5th and 6th receivers could sometimes make plays, not make plays at all. Like, if Tua's the quarterback, I actually could see those two making plays if they did ever have to play like receiver snaps. I think Eskridge will be more of a return guy for you, and he'll have some good kickoff returns. Taj probably won't be active unless there's some injuries, but I think he's someone that's talented enough to see true receiver snaps. This is probably the best I felt about the receiver room. I would say in the McDaniel era, like from top to bottom. But yeah. Malik is in for a massive year, replaces Tyreek next year in onwards. I love Malik. Personally, I just don't think he replaces Tyreek. I've seen some people say that. He might technically replace Tyreek on the depth chart if they don't bring anyone in from like free agency or the draft that's like better than him. But I don't think he's really a Tyreek replacement. Like, I don't think they're the same player, to be honest. Like, I don't even think they really have the same style either. But I do like Malik a lot. I actually think Waddle is pretty much your Tyreek replacement. And then you'll have someone replace Waddle that I'm guessing either will be through the free agency and the draft, and they'll probably still have Malik in that third role. But I do love Malik Washington a lot. Let me see. Been following you for 2 years now. Let me say, hands down, best channel and the knowledge gained from this at pro level. Hey, appreciate that, Rum. That means a lot, man. What do you think division record will be realistically? Realistically, like a 3-3, I would say is pretty realistic. I think that's pretty realistic because you haven't beaten the Bills. You could beat them, but I would still guess 0-2. And then while I think the other teams have at least improved enough, if Tua is healthy, I think you still beat them for the most part, and then maybe you lose one of them. So like 3-1 versus everyone else. So 3-3, I think it's pretty realistic. But yeah. To make it clear, yeah. There's definitely a lot of injuries. Most of our playbook and most of it from X. X hasn't been here in like multiple years, so I don't think he's gonna have most of the playbook. Plus, we just picked up Julius Brents, who was just there, a week ago. Every team will have player matchups like that where you can get some type of insight. Malik Washington is closer to Jarvis Landry than Tyreek. Yeah, from a play style perspective, I agree. They're more similar. But yeah, feel pretty good about the receiver room and those players, and individually, I think they all can perform pretty well. Let's go to O-line. Patrick Paul, I think, I would say, I wasn't a big fan of the Patrick Paul pick, but I have been, I think, pretty much near the top. Before this season started, I think I was near the top of like fans that thought he was going to be pretty decent. I think most had a lot of question marks. I thought he was going to, I thought last year he was better than I expected. And then I thought, he would improve going into year 2 because one, he was a guy that had all the talent, but also the mindset to improve. And then the things that he could improve in were things that I don't think that are that hard to improve in. Like there's certain things that you just like can't really, like certain areas you can't improve in. He had all those things, all those intangibles. And then I just think based on the preseason, I think he might be even better than I even initially thought. So Paul, I think, is going to be pretty good for you. He's not going to be elite or great, I don't think, not in year 2. But I think he's going to be pretty good. So yeah, that will be a big momentum. I think out of your starters, Jonah is the one that will struggle the most. In the preseason, he had very up and down moments. I do think that's fine if he does struggle. Obviously, he's a rookie. He's going to face his rookie struggles. And there's some technique things that he needs to work upon in both pass pro and the run game. But for me, I think if they help him out in pass pro with like how they work slides and stuff, and then if he can at least flash in the run game with his athleticism and power, that would be like super, super helpful. I think it's okay if the Dolphins have like one guy who's kind of a weak link, but no more than that. Brewer, we know what to expect out of him. He's one of the better players in this system, fits really well. James Daniels, he's coming off the Achilles, but I would say from the limited preseason snaps, he looks pretty healthy to me. Like, obviously he's going against preseason defenders, but you can still see how he's moving. So I think James Daniels is going to be pretty solid for you. Maybe not what he, like anything dominant, but a clear improvement over last season. And then Austin Jackson, you know what to expect out of Jackson. He's healthy. Some really good run block reps, some iffy pass pro reps, but he'll be fine because of the system that they run. Your biggest worry about Jackson is can he stay healthy, which, he hasn't pretty much his entire career. And then the backups, I think Borum should be the one that replaces Jackson because I think Borum has the most similar skill set to Jackson. I know people might want to see Kendall Lamb, and while Kendall Lamb might be the better player, I think for what they ask their players to do in this system, Borum has the best chance of actually translating that to offensive success as a whole compared to Borum. I worry about Grant, how he looked in the preseason. I thought Kenny Grant played great in the preseason. As long as he's back to healthy, which it seems like he is. I think the D-line, I'll get to the D-line, but I feel pretty strong about that group. Andrew Myers, that'd be nice to come back because he'll be your 6th or 7th depth piece, but he's really only your center depth piece, so it's like hard to really rank him as one. But yeah, the rest of you got Daniel Brunskill, Keon Smith, Kendall Lamb. You might get some production out of those guys. I wouldn't feel super confident if they had to play though. I think if maybe one has to play backup at a time, they can be fine. But yeah. Then we can get to tight ends. Oof. Okay, the tight end group. Don't have a lot of expectations here, but I will. Okay, so Waller, I have no idea. Genuinely, no idea what to expect from Waller. That's the biggest question mark to me on offense. Wouldn't be surprised if he does pretty much nothing, but I also wouldn't be surprised if he just plays a very situational role and, maybe catches some clutch third downs, maybe catches some touchdowns. And if he does that, then he was worth the cheap contract, I think you're basically hoping for a red zone threat there that can be a reliable, bigger target over the middle. But yeah. Not sure what to expect there. No depth on the line, 0. I wouldn't say 0, but yeah, I definitely worry about the O-line depth. But I mean, the O-line depth and starters were worse last year because a lot of your guys who would have been depth on this roster were starters last year. So I still think it is better than what you had last year. at least initially. And plus, also, they went to like third string guys. Like they were playing Jackson Carmen at some points last year, which is just crazy to me. Because Carmen literally brings nothing. But yeah, I do worry. I think the Dolphins O-line can survive with 4 out of the 5 stars. I think once they go to past that, then they're really in trouble. Would you have traded Smythe to the Steelers? When? I mean, I don't think they would have ever traded for Smythe. But I mean, if anyone would have traded for Smythe, I would have done it. Oh yeah, this is also true, JJC. I think some people definitely like most teams' depth on the O-line is terrible. Most teams. There's obviously a few teams that have decent depth, but O-line depth is so hard to find because a lot of teams don't even have good O-line starters. But yeah. But some teams can get away with it. But for the most part, yeah, they can. It definitely hurts. But yeah, tight end, no idea what to expect from Darren Waller. I think Julian Hill will be better than what he was last season, but not much better. Like, I think he'll have a better year than he did in year 2, but still be inconsistent. And then Tanner Conner, I think, will probably have his most productive year, but that's not saying much. So, I mean, I think Conner will actually have some catches this season if I had to guess. And he'll play more snaps unless he gets injured. I think if he doesn't get injured, I think he'll have his most like opportunity. He'll have the most opportunities ever had. I don't think he'll do crazy with them, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's at least involved this year. Then you got to QBs. I think, Tua obviously kind of depends on the health of the O-line and stuff like that. I think he's in a better spot to have a better year, but that's tough to predict. Then we got the backups. I think the backups overall is better than in the year past, but if they have to play more than like 1 or 2 games, I think the Dolphins are screwed. I think like if they have to survive without Tua for like 1 or 2 games, they could still, be fine. But anything beyond that, they're kind of screwed. Then we get to D-line. I think, obviously, we know what to expect from Sealer. I think Benito Jones will probably start the year, but I think Kenneth Grant will quickly take over. I have pretty high expectations for Grant. I think he's going to be probably your most productive rookie. I think he looked the part in preseason. I think the athleticism, the power combination is very, very nice. I think the ability to work on stunts, I think his motor was running super hot. Every time the players have talked about it, it seems like he's super like ready, locked in. I think Grant's going to play a decent amount of snaps, like around that 600-ish range, and have a quality season for you. Jordan Phillips will see snaps for a 5th-round rookie. I think for a 5th-round rookie, will probably overproduce, but will just be a pretty much a run stopper year 1. Like you're not going to see much pass production or pass rush production from Phillips, but I think you'll see some interior run stops from him. And then Matthew Butler, I think, will be the 5th guy to see snaps. I think Zeke Biggers is more likely to be an inactive, especially early in the season as they develop him. So I don't expect much from him in year 1. And then Butler, I think if he's on the field versus the runs, he's a liability. If he's on the field as a pass rusher, I would say he's a plus because he has some good pass rush ability. I made a video on Matthew Butler yesterday if you haven't seen that, film breakdown wise. But let me see what you guys are saying. But most teams have at least one good backup. We don't. Yeah, but I just don't look at it that way. I feel like a lot of people look at things in like a black and white way of like, this guy's better than this guy. For the Dolphins O-line, that doesn't necessarily matter with how their system runs. It's really just about how they fit the system and they can produce of what's asked of them. I think if Larry Borum has to fill in for Austin Jackson for like 1 or 2 games at a time, I think that he can produce in that role if they protect him in like certain situations. Because there's obvious situations where he would struggle. Because I've seen it in the past, man. Like Brewer came here and people thought Brewer was trash. Like Brewer was labeled trash, but system is so important. that like I know they could still get away. Now, if Bourne had like if Ashton Jackson missed like 8 games and Bourne had to play, then I would have some serious concerns. But I think he could fill in for 1 to 2 games and do enough there. Brunskill, kind of the same thing on the interior. I think he could fill in for 1 to 2 games. Kendall Lamb, I don't like, even though he's probably your most experienced tackle and probably your best of the group, I actually think him filling in would be a detriment to the team. I don't like, he would be more so better at left tackle than right tackle because I'm trying to like fit in these, like it's almost like a puzzle piece. You're trying to fit in guys that like kind of make up for the starter. Lamb does not fill in for Austin Jackson well at all. Like they're polar opposite players. Lamb is better in pass pro, but I also think Lamb's pass pro has taken a hit. And for what the Dolphins ask of that position, I think it would be more of a negative. And then Keon Smith is more like, I don't really know what you would get from Keon Smith, to be honest. Coming off the injury, if he plays guard, if he plays guard, you're screwed. If he plays tackle, you might get a decent performance out of him. You might get serviceable stuff. Why did Miami keep Beller? I went really in depth on that in my film breakdown. If you wanna, and I posted that yesterday. Do you think we'll sign Peppers? I've seen a lot of people on that. Personally, I just don't know who they would get rid of at the safety position. That would make sense, and I wouldn't cut Trader for him. So, probably a no for me. Hoping Weaver, yeah, I think that's one of my most, outside of like just specific players, I think what Weaver does with the front 7 and how he rotates coverage behind that will be one of the most interesting things for me to watch every single week. So hypothetically, if you have a coaching change and so much of this roster is a system fit, how do you handle that if you're no coach? I mean, yeah, that is definitely a potential problem for the future, but it also kind of depends. Like, say, it really just depends on the coach. Because, like, say Weaver ends up just being the head coach. So, like, say that's the direction they went if they moved on from McDaniel. I think it would be smart for Weaver to bring in a Shanahan-style offensive coordinator, or at least someone close enough to that, so at least it could kind of translate for most of the players, maybe not for everyone. But I also think that's probably one of the biggest things Weaver needs in general is a good offensive coordinator, because I think when you hire a defensive mind, like if you don't get the offensive coordinator behind it, it doesn't matter how good of a head coach you end up being. You get screwed by that. But I don't know. Like if it depends on what Ross does. If he brings in someone who's just completely different, an offensive mind with a completely different system, then yeah, there's a lot of players that are going to be, I think, moved on from. And there's certain players that can still, I think, play depending on what the system is. But can we get Peppers as Uganda to settle with our guys? I just answered that, but I mean, we could, but personally, I don't know who they would cut to get Peppers on. I don't see them moving on from any of those safeties. And I don't know if it's worth it. Unless they I feel like the only person that would make unless if they saw Peppers as like a better Melifonwu and then they moved on from Melifonwu, I feel like, but I feel like they're gonna see what Melifonwu's got. I mean, we're getting way too ahead of ourselves with drafting quarterbacks. It's definitely a possibility, but it really depends on how this year plays out. It also depends on how well these quarterbacks play, because most of the draftable quarterbacks did not play well yesterday. What role do you see Ashton Davis play when he gets back center high with Minka roaming? I definitely think he'll see those snaps for sure. I think they'll all play, there will be a rotation for, people are going to play every spot just depending on looks and coverage and how things are motioned. Sometimes you rotate the spots. But I do think that's probably the idea. If Ashton is going to play, I think that's the best part of him playing is he's one of the only guys with single high experience besides Minka. So that would allow you to move Minka around and be more of a chess piece and to be more involved on a play-to-play basis. Because guys who play single high, lots of reps where you're just not involved. But yeah. We can go to linebacker. Or let's go to edge. The group that I think could potentially put this season on its back. Phillips, Chubb, Chop, Judon, and then you also have Cam Good. Cam Good, quick, we can talk about him. I think special teams impact, that's all I really expect out of him. Maybe a few snaps here or there, but wouldn't expect anything as a pass rusher. He can stop the run. But yeah, I think Chop, honestly, I think Chop is going to be your best pass rusher. From what I've seen and what I expect, I think Chubb and Phillips will sometimes get rotated in and out, probably work them back from injuries and stuff like that. I think all three will be on the field at the same time a lot too. That will be super fun to watch. Phillips and Chubb are definitely going to make plays and be quite productive. But I think Chop is going to be like the highest pressure rate guy. Because his pressure rate was insane last year, like really high numbers. So Chop will be one of the hard carries. And then I think Judon will be a solid fourth guy. Then off-ball linebackers, Jordan Brooks, one of your best players. Willie Gay. I think Tyrell Dotson will be the second starter and will do fine depending on the matchup. I think matchups like last year, like teams like the Packers, like teams like that are very good with run misdirection and run heavy teams. That's where Dodson might struggle, but I think he'll be fine in other games. And then I think Willie Gay will be like a rotational linebacker that plays a lot of snaps, but is used more situationally and like used to just basically maximize his skill set. Because you don't want him out there thinking a lot. You want him to have a very specific job, and you want him to fly downhill or, maybe make some plays in man coverage. And I think he'll be productive there. And then KJ Britt's probably the fourth guy. I don't know what we'll see out of him. He would only really play, I think, either in like a very obvious run situation where it's like a short yardage, you want your best run stuffing linebackers in there, or he'll only play if it's like injuries. Oh yeah, the outside linebackers coach got arrested. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if that will really play into it, like the actual success of the season, because that room's so talented. I don't know, like necessarily if the coaching, who the actual coaches will matter, but I mean, it is a very Dolphins thing to happen. What do you think about McDaniel? I mean, I like McDaniel, but he has very specific. There's very like situational things he needs to work on, and if there's no improvement on that this year, then I think then they move on after the season. Probably should move on coach and GM. I mean, it's a not for long league. It's not like he's bad. Like, I don't think he's bad. Because, I mean, he's done an overall, if you look at it from like an overall perspective, he's done a pretty good job. But you only get so long in this league that you have to, reach certain standards after a certain time period. And I think this is the year for that to happen. If it doesn't, then you move on. Where are we at? Defensive backs. Oof. I think the defensive backs, very tough to predict how they're going to play. But maybe over, like, I would say like the most casual fan perspective, like non-Miami Dolphins fans, people will look at this room and think the Dolphins are just going to be giving up like 400-yard passers every week. I don't think that's the case. Now, do I think that's not the case because of the secondary? No, I think it's more so from the scheme in your front seven. That won't be the case. There will definitely be games where they get exposed. Like, I think teams like that are more built like the Lions, the run first, heavy play action teams will take more advantage of the Dolphins secondary. But overall, it won't be as bad as people think. And then individual perspective, I think Minka's going to be very good. I don't have a clue which other safety will step up and be the actual starter. I think it will switch throughout the season. And I'm really excited to see Jason Marshall Jr. in the nickel. And I think we're going to see a lot of 3 safety sets as well. Let's see what 3 safety set looks we got. McDaniel needs to give up play calling, or penalties are a direct reflection on him. I mean, I don't know if him giving up play calling will really change that, though. Unless they, like, the guy who's calling plays just goes to a different system, which they won't. But yeah. That's kind of where I'm at with the roster. There was something I wanted to say, but I forgot. Oh yeah, Taj Washington video. Big fan of Taj. That will come out at noon Eastern later after this stream, so check that out later. Because if there's one guy that I really think earned his roster spot that was not guaranteed it was Taj. And he had to do, like, they had to keep an extra receiver body just to keep him. So, shout out Taj. I have a feeling I think Minka's going to have a really good year. I look at this team and, like, these are the guys I'm very confident in as players. And that would be this season specifically of, like, oh, I think they're going to have really good seasons. I would say, like, really good seasons. Like, they'll be, like, our best players. Waddle, Brewer, Achane, Zach Sealer, Jordan Brooks, Minka, and then I would say your top 3 edges as well. I have pretty good faith in all of them. And then I have good faith in Tua if he stays healthy as well. Sorry, I meant his play calling is hard to watch and his penalties are even worse. Yeah, I don't think it's his... it's situational play calling at times. But I also think a lot of his situational play calling that fans were frustrated with were less to do with what he wanted to call and more to do with the personnel last year. Because overall, like, his play design is quite good. But there are situations where he needs to be better. Also, to be fair, like, I'm not an expert in play calling. I don't think any of us are experts in play calling. Like, you know, McDaniel probably knows a lot more than all of us. Yeah, any other questions? Because that was everything I wanted to go over. I think Tyreek will also be one of our plus players. I mean, yeah, he'll definitely have a good season. The only reason I didn't say him because I was thinking more of people that I think would either play at a similar level to last year or or just like be way better. I just don't know if Tyreek's going to be like his best version of Dolphins players. Why I didn't say him. But yeah, we'll see how it goes this year. Because, like, in my opinion, it's really hard to have the number 1 offense, like, statistically, and be a bad play caller. Like, it's not like he just suddenly forgot how to call plays in 2024. There's definitely situations where he needs to improve, like, I think, short yardage. Now, I think they added the personnel this season to allow him to be more of a consistent short yardage play caller, and we'll see if that improves. But I feel like people are like, some people think he's like awful, and I'm like, he had like one of the best offenses for years. Now last year it was bad, but I think that was a combination of a lot of things. I think sometimes we get caught up in recency bias, whether it's with coaches or players, and sometimes there's just other factors that played into a decline in things from players. And there's also sometimes like factors that play into an elevation. Like Jonnu Smith, I think Jonnu Smith is a perfect example of like, there's certain factors that happen with the offense that force-fed Jonnu to get fed into like some low-value touches, but where he excels, that probably raised his value to the highest it would ever have been. But Jonnu's a good player, but I feel like he got a little overrated because of his usage last year. And then players like Waddle and Tyreek got underrated. Like some people think Waddle's and Tyreek like are just not good anymore, which is crazy to me. It's also so funny whenever you see like someone say the Dolphins are interested in a trade, every other fan base for some reason thinks they're going to get Waddle in a package deal. I don't know why I always see that. I'm like there's literally no Waddle would be like the last player you would get in a package deal. Like that's crazy to me. Oh man. Oh. Yeah, that's good stuff. Excited to we're a week out. Also, I don't know if I ever mentioned this on stream because I don't think I've streamed since. But the Dolphins did put a claim on Jalen Armour-Davis. He just went first, and he went to the first team in claim, so they didn't get him. But I did think it was interesting that they put in a claim on Brents and Armour-Davis, so clearly they were trying to take some shots there at corner. We need to run the ball on 3rd and 1 instead of passing the ball. Well, I think if the preseason's any indication, I think that's their plan because I think they ran the ball on every 3rd and 4th and 1 or short, and they had a lot of them in the preseason. Trade away our future one doesn't make much sense. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. Also, like the people that wanted, like I remember people wanting to trade for Micah Parsons, and I don't think I've talked about that since. I like Brunson. Yeah, well, they would have got both of them if Armour-Davis made it through, and that would have been interesting. But like trading, like I think if the Parsons trade, that is a move the Dolphins would have 2 years ago, 100% would have been one of the top teams involved if this was 2 years ago. And while like, I'm not saying it's a bad trade value, it's good value for Parsons. That would have been a bad move, I think, for Miami specifically, because we've done that move, and that's a win now move. It's not good for your cap. It's not good for the future of your team from first-round picks. We've done this before. Didn't make the difference. The Dolphins need to focus on building your team the correct way, which is through the draft. So that's why I'm glad they weren't really involved in that. Plus, I also think it's probably the team where he would have made the least amount of impact. Like, obviously, he would have impacted the team and made them better, but like, I don't think that's already the Dolphins' strongest position group. So like, well, it would have made it better, but it wouldn't have made the Dolphins into a completely different team. How about the Hurricanes today? I mean, yeah, I'm gonna watch that game. I don't have a college team, so I just watch for players because I'm a draft guy. So I'll be watching for specific players. Notre Dame's running back is very good. Jeremiah Love is very good. Parsons for Phillips, maybe. Yeah, but it would have been Phillips and 2 first-round picks. That's the problem. It would have been more than, because it was 2 first-round picks and Kenny Clark, and Kenny Clark's a good player. And Phillips is coming off injuries, like that lowers Phillips' value. Like it would have been 2 first-round picks and a player like Phillips. But yeah, definitely glad they weren't really involved. I think that shows some growth and understanding of where you are as a team. And yeah, I do believe the Packers are Super Bowl contenders with him. Like Parsons is that good. He is insane. Yeah. The only way it's worth it for Fins is straight up trade. Yeah, I mean, there's no one. They would have to trade like 4 players. There's no one straight up on the Dolphins worth Parsons' value. But yeah, that's why. Like, we got more for Laramie Tunsil though, which is kind of crazy. Shout out Laramie Tunsil, one of the most valuable trades. Yeah, Lenora Sellers also plays today. That's a big game for him. I like Love as, yeah. I think the team's just good enough around him, and I think, I mean, Jalen Hurts is a Super Bowl contender, and as a pure quarterback, I don't look at him as like, oh, he's the guy that gets you to the Super Bowl. It's just his teams around him. I think the Packers are good enough, and Parsons, I don't know if you guys saw the stat, but you guys know what EPA is, right? Like the EPA for defenses. The Cowboys EPA with Parsons on the field since he's been there is the #1 defense. So since 2021, the Cowboys are the #1 rated EPA with Parsons on the field. They are 32nd without him, and he's also got the best pressure rate in his first 4 seasons ever. That guy is dominant. Chop is going to be better than Parsons. Then he's a first ballot Hall of Famer if that's true. So, I have high faith for Chop, but better than Parsons would be first ballot Hall of Famer type. Insane. Packers wide receivers are too weak, though, in my opinion. They're a run-first team, and I think they drafted Matthew Golden, who I think is a pretty good player, and I think they don't have any true studs outside of potentially Golden turning into a stud, but I think they have a lot of solid receivers there. I think Jaden Reed's solid, Romeo Dubs is solid, Christian Watson's solid, Dontavian Wicks. If Dontavian Wicks could catch the ball, he would be one of the better receivers in the league. He just can't catch the ball. Wicks is so good at everything except catching the football. It's insane. Will he be better than the Cowboys? Oh, yeah, definitely after that Parsons trade. Chop doesn't have back issues. That Parsons doesn't have back issues either. That's not real. He got a second opinion because he was trying to hold out he was going to hold out with the Cowboys to not get traded. Those were fake back issues. What do you think about Thor, Griffith, Luke Kandra, Joey Fisher as twin Vince? I don't mind bringing anyone on the practice squad. The only name there that I really am familiar with as of right now is Condra, and I think Condra is just not a scheme fit at all for what Miami likes to do. And I do like what the Dolphins have. I like Braden Daniels a lot in the practice squad. I don't know if any of those guys are better than him or Josh Preby. They could be. If they are, then maybe, but I don't know off the top of my head. But Dolphins O-line, it's just so scheme specific. He missed time last year because of it. Yeah, but he's 100% right now. And to be honest, we aren't discussing injuries. we're talking about them as players. And Parsons is the best pass rusher in the league. He is, just based on all of the stats, his usage. He's got the quickest pressure rate there is. And I don't want to trade for Parsons, so I'm not even biased or anything. I don't even like Parsons as a person either. He's just that good. I gotta give him his respect. And I love Chop, but for Chop to be better than him, he's got to take a huge step. And I already think Chop's gonna be really good. Want a Jackson Dart in a Dolphins uniform? We'll see how he ends up playing. I think Jackson Dart could be decent, but I don't know if he'll ever be great or anything. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if he would have been a good scheme fit for Mike. He can do the RPO stuff, but outside of that, I don't know if it would have fit. Yeah, okay. Unless there's not 13th in the draft. Oh, hell no. I'd have been pissed if they drafted Dart at 13, to be honest. But yeah. Unless there's any other questions, I'm probably going to end it. Check out the Taj Washington film breakdown. To me, if the Dolphins are going for a QB, I want someone with the potential to be great. If that's where they're going to go, I like someone that could be a top guy. I just don't see that for Dart. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. I think Mike will commit to run the ball at least 25 times a game. I don't think there's any set number, but I think if the run game is working and it's going consistently, then yeah, I think he'll run the ball. I think there's a bit of a narrative that like Mike just doesn't like to run the ball, and there's been times where yeah, I think he could have ran the ball more, but I really think like that narrative got overblown last year just because they could not run the ball. Like they literally couldn't do it no matter how hard they tried. They couldn't gain anything. So, they had to stop running the ball. But I would say based on the Dolphins' moves this offseason, clearly putting, I think, more of an emphasis on the run game. And I think having the run game, if the run game's successful, that's all I care about. The volume of the run game will matter depending game to game. But if the run game is successful, that means the pass game should most likely be more opened up and give you more opportunities to throw the ball. So that's how I just look at it. So you don't necessarily need to run the ball, 100 times or whatever. I think they should be trying to run the ball a lot. But if that pass game gets opened up from the run game, start taking those shots, because the Dolphins need to start throwing the ball down the field more this season compared to last year. They couldn't do it last year because of the O-line issues. Yeah. Okay, thank you guys for watching. See you guys next time.